All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Kevin Thomas. I'm a registered and licensed dietitian. I work on behalf of Edwards Healthcare Services within their CoreVantage program. The topic of today's presentation is managing type 2 diabetes without shame, discussing lifestyle, medication, and mindset for those that are either newly diagnosed or for those that might have been living with diabetes for a number of years. So the outline of today's presentation, we'll be discussing the stigma around type 2 diabetes. We'll discuss the science behind type 2 diabetes and why it's often not someone's fault if they develop type 2 diabetes. We'll be exploring lifestyle strategies that can truly make a difference, looking at the mindset of medication as tools, not failures, because blood sugars were too high. We'll discuss building a mindset of resilience and self-compassion. And lastly, looking at where to find support to manage your diabetes. So first things first, type 2 diabetes and stigma. There are many misconceptions with diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes. Whether it's, as this is paraphrased here, you cause this misconception, or just lose weight. If only it was that straightforward and that easy. There are many contributors to the development of type 2 diabetes, many of which have nothing to do with our habits, nothing to do with our routine. Understanding that we are not at fault when it comes to type 2 diagnosis, we need to have that mindset going forward. As the saying goes, live in the now, not in the was. The reality of type 2 diabetes is that genetics play a significant role in the development of type 2 diabetes, as does one's environment. In America, at least, we live in an obesogenic environment. So it's an environment that really promotes, more or less, weight gain, that makes weight loss and managing weight much more difficult in other countries. There are also other health factors that we need to bear in mind. We are all individuals. We all have different bodies. We all have different, whether it be injury histories or disease factors that we have to adjust our lifestyle to. And those can often contribute to the development of at least elevated blood sugars, and for some, the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. If we shame ourselves that we've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, what does that do? It might add undue stress. It could certainly make it harder to cope with our life changes and our lifestyle after we're diagnosed with diabetes. And lastly, encouragement from others. Positive self-talk and support certainly helps to improve outcomes. It's important to talk to other people that either have diabetes or other people that you might find as a valuable support person in your efforts to reduce your blood sugars. Don't do it alone. Don't go at it alone. And don't think that you must. Simply try harder. Okay, there's much more to it than just that. So let's talk a little bit about what is type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes is caused by insulin resistance and or insulin production. Either the insulin that our pancreas produces isn't working well, or our pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin. Insulin is a hormone that our body naturally produces. However, some people don't produce enough. In some people, their body might not work well with regards to lowering their blood sugars. Insulin really helps to lower blood sugars. That's the hormone's primary function. Even with the best effort of those people trying to control their blood sugars, it might not be enough to prevent fluctuations in blood sugar. We have to understand that there's many factors that can influence our blood sugar beyond, well, what am I eating? and am I exercising or not? Diabetes is progressive. And what I mean by that is it's not something that can be cured. We have to understand that it needs to be managed effectively. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes, is something people can live with for decades healthfully. However, if it's not managed well, it's something that, it could dramatically influence the trajectory of your long-term health. And lastly, type 2 diabetes, there certainly is a biological component, right? The genetic pull, the family history that we can do nothing about, okay? And for many people, it's often not a failure or lack of willpower if they get diagnosed with diabetes. It's just something we have to understand, and we have to work at it as best we can. We have to control the variables that we can now control. We can't go back. So there are a few lifestyle strategies, primarily four. These are not necessarily in order of importance, but nutrition being the first is a main factor, lifestyle factor, aimed at reducing blood sugars. So with regards to nutrition, it's important to focus on balance, flexibility, and sustainability. It's not about following a crash or fad diet for a short period of time just to get our blood sugars down. It's about finding a balance between the foods that are healthy, the foods that we like, and maybe some of those foods that aren't the healthiest for us, but we still want on occasion. And that's normal. Movement. It's important that we, whether one is diagnosed with diabetes or not, it's important that we move move a lot all throughout the day. Being active as opposed to being sedentary and sitting down all day, we need to be active. Now, for some people, they may already be active and they're doing a great job at controlling their blood sugars as a result of that. Whereas other people might not be nearly as active. The goal isn't ideal as far as getting in exercise every day. The goal is to be more active than your baseline if you're not exercising at least 3 days a week. And it's important that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach with exercise. So choose enjoyable activities that fit your life. It doesn't have to be on a treadmill or outside running. It could be indoors, watching television as you're using your elliptical or recumbent bike, doing calisthenics, using resistance bands, playing sports, ballroom dancing, could be ice skating, rollerblading. Being active is important. And the last two lifestyle strategies that often go not unmarked or not even unchecked, but are very important and are easily overlooked. The importance of adequate rest, so adequate sleep, and making sure we're not overly stressed. We're taking time out of our day, out of our week, out of our month to practice the habits that calm us down, to practice the habits that put life in perspective. So stress management is key, whether it's meditation, light stretching, deep breathing, watching something or talking to somebody that makes you laugh. All so important as a lifestyle strategy to control blood sugars. And lastly, the changes when it comes to a lifestyle strategy, they need to be small at first, but the key is consistent. Similar to the analogy of a snowflake becoming a snowball, becoming an avalanche. Okay, in your favor, that is. One of the hardest myths to overcome is that needing medications means you've failed. The truth, medications are absolutely tools. And there's a lot of medications, or at least a lot of medication options for those people living with type 2 diabetes. It could be medications you swallow or oral medications. Could be injectables, similar to insulin and some of the GLP-1 medications, if you're familiar with those. All of them are safe and effective. And what's nice about that, because there are so many options out there, if one doesn't work well, maybe discontinue that and try another. Working with your provider, your family doctor or endocrinologist is important to open up those lines of communication to find the medication that works right for you. With medication, they only work so well. And what I mean by that, it goes back to what I said just a couple minutes ago about diabetes being progressive. What works today might not work 5 years from now to keep your blood sugar under control. So, with some people, the dosage might need to go up, or the doctor might need to add or try a new medication, or maybe have, instead of one diabetes medication, maybe two. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you were a failure or that one is a failure at controlling their blood sugars. Because diabetes is progressive, the level of effort that it takes to control blood sugars now might be a lot easier than it is 10 years from now. And understanding that and just having peace at the fact that we're doing the best we can and we need to take the daily steps to make sure our blood sugar is well controlled. And it might require a little bit more effort today than it did in years past. Medications are vital for diabetes management, for blood sugar management. Why? Well, they protect the heart, the kidneys, and long-term health. Diabetes doesn't just affect one organ, it can affect many. And medications and doctors that are prescribing these medications, they understand that. The best outcome for diabetes comes from combining not only our habits or a new healthy lifestyle, but also the assistance that medications do provide. So nutrition without guilt. There are no off-limits foods necessarily with blood sugar control or diabetes. Okay? It needs to be about balance though. If there are some foods that you may enjoy that are high in sugar, okay, or very high in carbohydrates, doesn't mean you have to avoid those foods. Not necessarily. The frequency of how often or how regular you're eating them matters. Also does the dose or the portion. Okay? So when it comes to foods that one might find that they have a very hard time saying no to just one or two bites, maybe don't have those in the house very often. Maybe eat those at restaurants occasionally, just because out of sight, out of mind. If it's in our kitchen, we might be more prone to be having those high carbohydrate rich foods quite regularly. Another method when it comes to diets and blood sugar control is the plate method. So if we're looking at our plate, it's divided in four, okay, so quarters or 25%. Half the plate for lunch and dinner at least, the emphasis is on getting more vegetables than most people get. In this case, it'd be half a plate of vegetables, followed by 1/4 the plate of protein, whether it's chicken, fish, lean beef, turkey, and some options, even pork. Lastly, only 1/4 or 25% of your plate being the grains, whether that's rice, whether that's corn, pasta, potato, okay? That's a huge, I shouldn't say that's a huge change. For most people, particularly at dinner, that would often be a shift to where they're focusing still on having some carbohydrates, but making sure it's not a foundational food that dominates that meal. For those people that might like meat and potatoes, that will be an option, or that would be a meal that's largely, probably half the plate is going to be potatoes. Same with spaghetti. Maybe having a side salad with it. Maybe adding some cottage cheese with the meal. It's not a meat item, but it is high protein. Okay, and it's low in calories as well, and also very low in carbohydrates. The third bulletin point: portion awareness helps keep blood sugar steady. If there's one takeaway from nutrition and diabetes, it's important to avoid overeating. Simply put, one might be following several new lifestyle habits when it comes to food. They might not be eating ice cream. They might be avoiding soda. They might be avoiding cereals, trying to avoid bread. If they're overeating their meals, they are going to be having a difficult time with blood sugar management. And lastly, it's important to become more of an intuitive eater. What does that mean? It means slowing down, enjoying the meal. If we slow down, we enjoy the meal more. We also have better awareness of our hunger cues that let us know when we're full. That's a habit that's very hard to change as far as mindful eating. Practice makes perfect. Becoming a slower eater tends to help. Maybe putting the fork or spoon down after every bite for just a few moments might extend the duration of that meal. So the mindset, our mindset absolutely matters. And it's important that we don't focus on perfection. It's important that we focus on context, knowing that maybe the difficulties we have today are just the difficulties of the moment and not a usual trend, and that tomorrow shall come and some of those worries will be behind us. It's important to look at progress, knowing that maybe our blood sugars aren't where we want them to be long term, but they might be better than where they have been. And with the hope that a little bit more effort, working with our doctor, maybe improving nutrition, exercise, maybe sleeping better, maybe controlling for our stress a little bit, might inch us a little bit closer towards our goal as time goes by. Your doctor will be asking for labs or having you submit labs on a regular basis. These numbers provide feedback. They're not a grade. How much effort it might take one person to control their diabetes could be significantly different compared to another person based upon many factors. The feedback's important because it lets you know where you need to go or if you might need to do one or two things a little bit differently. Thirdly, self-compassion reduces stress and burnout. This isn't a sprint to the finish. Living with diabetes can be very difficult to manage, particularly for those people who have been living with it for years. For anyone newly diagnosed with diabetes, they might be really motivated to make some healthy changes. But what happens when that newness, that excitement wears down, wears off? It comes down to determination, just doing what we need to do, even though at times we might want to do something else. Having that discipline helps. And lastly, it's important to concentrate energy on what you can influence. In a perfect world, one might be able to be doing a lot of, or might be able to change a lot of factors that help to reduce blood sugars. Well, that ideal might not be you. Maybe you can't get up early and work out. Maybe you can't grocery shop for your own foods. Maybe you're not the one cooking food. All right? These are a lot of factors that could really influence people negatively if they let it. Well, maybe we're not grocery shopping, maybe letting somebody else know what we need if they're able to purchase it for us. Informing whoever might be cooking, if it's in our home, hey, can you cook this food instead? Or can you cook this food instead of frying it, grill it? Okay? Instead of saying, well, we're eating out, I guess I'll go with you. How about offering the input to go, you know what, I want to go here, wherever that might be, instead. So concentrate energy on what you can influence. All right, so the CoreVantage, it's really here to help each and every member, those clients of Edwards Healthcare Services that are utilizing a continuous glucose monitor. So the CoreVantage program goes beyond nutrition coaching and diabetes supplies, offers a well-rounded program designed to support your healthy lifestyle and overall well-being. So what does the CoreVantage program help with? Or what do they do? So it's personalized support from compassionate dietitians like myself who understand the emotional side of diabetes, not just what's on your plate. There's so much more about blood sugar control and diabetes management than just food. With the CoreVantage program, we provide encouragement and accountability to help you stay on track when motivation fades, which it can, not always, but it can. The CoreVantage program provides you with reminders and care coordination, so one less thing to worry about or that's weighing on your mind. We provide resources tailored to your real life. These include stress management techniques, burnout prevention, and self-care strategies. The CoreVantage program is a dedicated team in your corner. We help you feel seen, supported, and never alone in your journey. Some members I talk with within the CoreVantage program might see their doctor once a year. Well, I talk with these members 3, 4, maybe even 5 times a year in some cases to best support them as much as we can over the phone. Lastly, it's not about being perfect. It's about feeling empowered to take care of yourself one day at a time. It absolutely is a one day at a time approach. So, a few key takeaways. Diabetes management should never include shame. It doesn't help us. Secondly, we need a strong foundation built upon these 3 principles. It's about lifestyle, it's about medication, It's about having the positive, right mindset going into this. Compassion, flexibility, and resilience matter the most. Some people, when it comes to diabetes, it can negatively influence their health significantly if they're not taking the steps to control their blood sugar. On the flip side, one can live with diabetes 10, 20, 30, 40, over 50 years. I've worked with members that have had diabetes that long. They're living a healthy life. It takes effort, though. And lastly, you are not alone. Support and tools are always available through the CoreVantage program. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to go in the chat. We might have a few questions I'd like to open up and talk about for just a moment. Let's see here. All right. So the question I had my way in the text, or excuse me, the chat says, I feel guilty when I need medication. Does that mean I didn't try hard enough? Long and short of it, not at all. We need to understand that medications, they are a part of the natural course of type 2 diabetes. And really their intention is to prevent the complications. Medications help for that. It's not about failure. It's about using every tool to live well and to live long. All right, let's see. I do have another question. It says, I do everything right, but my numbers are still high. What am I doing wrong? It could be nothing, right? It could be a lot of factors that are out of our control. So type 2 diabetes, it is influenced by many factors. As I've stated already, stress, hormones, even sleep. And again, numbers provide the information. It's not a grade. It's important to share patterns with your care team or your doctor, or even the dietitian, to see if adjustments need to be made. All right, looks like we have one more question. It says, how do I stay motivated when I feel burnt out? Well, the long and short of it is we need to start small. We need to pick one change and focus on it with a lot of effort. The goal is to keep the goal the goal. We get busy with a lot of things. Let's just start small and see how that works for us. Okay, similar to a short walk or prepping one balanced meal. Small wins, they absolutely build momentum and help ease the mental load that can often accompany type 2 diabetes. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for your participation. It's been my pleasure teaching this class. Take care. And if anybody has any questions, I do have our email address there, as well as a telephone number. Thank you. Bye.